Miami quarterback Cam Ward is either your QB1 or your QB2 for the 2025 NFL Draft. Either way, he's a polarizing prospect in this class. What are some of the best landing spots to ensure his NFL success? We'll discuss this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And you know, I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at TheTalentCode. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champion, man, and the other side to this dynamic duel that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. And I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Every listener is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. DP, today's show, man, we're talking about the best landing spots for Cam Ward, right? Like what is the best situation for him, his skill set, right? Maybe like some of his best attributes, highlighting some of his deficiencies, and where should he go to put him in the best position to perform the best. Then we're going to talk about Quinshon Judkins, man, a guy that everybody had in the first round of mocks heading into this college football season, and he's slowly falling out. Now, is it his fault? We're going to talk about that, right? And then we're going to highlight some prospects, man. Take a spotlight, put it on the prospects. DP, let's get this Cam Ward conversation going.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Cam Ward, quarterback for the Miami Hurricanes, guy that's really been in the Heisman discussion for most of this season. I think he's the league leader, nation leader, I believe, in passing touchdowns in college football, and the catalyst to what we've seen. The resurgence of the U, right? Everybody thinking the U is back, Keith. But we look at him as a draft prospect. Cam Ward listed at 6'2", 225 pounds. He's got an NFL body type and frame and strength, supreme arm talent, mobility is there. When I think about not so much perfect fits, but best landing spots for Cam Ward, we kind of talked about it when we talked about your mock on yesterday, Keith. It was like, hey, we want to get him in a more structuredized situation. Like Miami it's been a good season for them, but their play calling is repetitive. It's a lot of RPO. Cam, hit the first read. If the first read isn't there, become Houdini. Do something, Cam. You know what I mean? It's just that at some point I feel like, we watch basketball. You see the star player like dribbling the ball, and everybody else is just kind of standing around like, LeBron, do something. Steph, do something. KD, do something. 100%. I feel like that when I'm watching Cam Ward, it's like it's all eyes on him. And a team, now look at the draft order. A team I think would be, I think we talked about the Giants a little bit. I think the Tennessee Titans with Brian Callahan would be a really good landing spot for him, right? You have two running backs, Tajay Spears, Tony Pollard in the backfield, Chigo Okonkwo at tight end. You have Calvin Ridley as right now the number one wide receiver. Yep. They got to add some more receiver pieces there and continue to work on that offensive line. But a guy that's similar to Shedeur, that a guy that has good pocket presence. He's used to the pocket collapsing on him for where they have him sitting in the pocket in Miami. And I think just as a pure passer, of course, he's an upgrade over what Will Levis is. I think Brian Callahan and his experience. We always go back to that experience with Joe Burrow, a guy that can drop back and you feel comfortable that he can throw the ball anywhere on the field with accuracy, with timing, with ball placement. And if you give him weapons, he's going to be able to make things happen. Like he can fit this offense a whole lot better than a guy like a Will Levis, who's just more of a vertical shot maker, wants to push the ball down the field. So one of the first landing spots that I look at inside that top 10, away from aside from like the Giants, I think the Titans would be a good spot for him.
Yeah, DP, and it's kind of interesting, right? Because per Tankathon, Jacksonville now has the number one pick, right? And obviously they're not going to go quarterback. And then you sit there with the New York Giants, and I think he'll be solid in New York, right? Him with Brian Daboll, that's something that I would believe in too.
Yeah,
Right?
that weaponry, the weapons they have, and if Brian Daboll gets another shot, like that's what we have to pray for right now.
Yeah, and I mean, if Brian, the crazy part is, like, if Brian Daboll gets fired, who knows if he ends up being with Trevor Lawrence, right? So they just kind of swap coaches. And I'll be happy for Brian Daboll because he doesn't deserve to get fired. But yeah, I like the New York Giants situation. Not a big fan of the Vegas situation. Just is like total rebuild. Like their best player right now is Brock Bowers at the end of the day. Then you keep going, New England, New Orleans. I who knows how New Orleans feel, right? I feel like it depends on the week that we sit there and say, oh, now they're going to oh, no, Derek Carr is good. And now they need to draft a quarterback, right? It just swings back and forth. And they still have Spencer Rattler. Interesting spot, DP, the New York Jets. Will we mind him sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for a year? And know we make Aaron Rodgers angry. We know Aaron Rodgers is not going to try to groom him, right? He's just going to have to observe himself at the end of the day, right? Like he's going to have to just take all the notes he could. Aaron Rodgers not going to help him, right? If we based off of past stuff. Sitting there and looking at it, I don't mind that spot, DP. Him just going there, sit a year, and as the Jets still add pieces to this offense, right, could be a good situation.
No, I like the Jets, and I think I've looked at it from this aspect, Keith. The Jets right now, if you had asked the Jets 2 years ago when they made the move for Aaron Rodgers, like, man, 2025 going into the 2026 NFL draft, midway through the 2025 NFL draft in the 2024 NFL season, 10 weeks in, you would be slated to have a top 10 pick. They'd be like, you're crazy. We got Aaron Rodgers. Well, you have Aaron Rodgers and you got a top 10 pick right now.
Yep.
I don't think, and like you said, he would not be happy about it. But guess what? Green Bay did it. And how does that work out for Green Bay? Right? It just is what it is. Like, I cannot chain my franchise to a near 40-year-old quarterback who up to this point has not played like a Hall of Famer. We just traded for your best friend, and that hasn't really helped us much at all either. You got to plan for the future. Like, at the end of the day, you got to plan for the future. You're going to bring in a new head coach, and what do new head coaches typically want, Keith? Their guy at quarterback. It's like, yes, I'm be great. It'll be cool if Aaron Rodgers is here for 2 more years, and he's going to play at a Hall of Fame level. I don't foresee that being the case. So I'd rather go ahead. Yeah, some people might say, you gonna really take a quarterback top 10? Yes, I have to plan for what's going to happen. Because what if Aaron Rodgers wakes up and get on Pat McAfee's show in March and say, I'm done? You know what I mean? Like, this is I ain't signed up for this. I'm done. I think so I like that Atlanta spot. This one might be a little controversial, Keith. Pick number 10 right now. The Miami Dolphins.
I was going to say that too.
Listen, yep. I like Tua. I've been a big fan of Tua since college, man. He was one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch. The concussions have been a constant thing for him, right? Like, that is an issue. There's always going to be physical limitations to his game, right? And with the weapons they have, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, all the running backs, the speed that they have at that position, Jonnu Smith, different things like that. I just think, man, you put Cam Ward in this offense with Mike McDaniel calling plays, like, with his physical ability and his ability to work the quick game that we've seen at the University of Miami, but the deep ball of guys don't have, no disrespect to Tua, but guys have to wait sometimes for that 40, 50-yard ball. Yep. Like, they have to slow it down for it. You telling me I get Tyreek Hill, he stacks his defender, and you uncork a bomb, and it's instead of him slowing up, it's, I'm right in stride. And you just keep the cheetah going. He doesn't have to slow it down. Same thing with Jalen Waddle. I think that the throws Tua makes, Cam Ward can make with relative ease. Like, he has the ability to make those same throws. But I think the throws that Cam Ward truly can make, Tua can't consistently make due to his actual physical limitations. And again, the concussions, man, the health. You got to think about the long term in that situation.
No, that's the main thing, DP. I think if any team needs a backup quarterback, it's this team, right? Because you can't go from, hey, we feeling really good, we 2-0, 4-0, whatever, we rolling one of the best offenses, then Tua gets hurt, and then now, our season's probably done, right? Like, and we see how that happens and just how fragile the concussion situation is that you can't bank on that, right? And I know the whole team doesn't want to bank on that. Like they don't want to be like, hey, if we're gonna do all this work in the off season, and then if Tua gets a concussion, we completely done.
Every time he gets hit, Keith, you wince.
Yeah,
you don't know what's gonna. Is he gonna get up? Is he hurt? Like you just as a fan of the game and a fan of the player. Right. And we're fathers, like he has a child and a wife. Like you just think about it from a human aspect, like get up. Like you're just hoping every time he goes down, even if it's just a sack, you're just hoping he gets up. And I'm pretty sure that the coaching staff and his teammates feel the same way. Like, man, just get up to it. And it's like you have to, if that's the thought process every time he gets hit, you're going to have a real conversation within the franchise.
Yep, 100%. Well, DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. Next up, we're going to switch from quarterback to running back. We're talking about Quinshon Judkins, right? One of the best prospects coming into this draft class has kind of fell off, right? His production is not there. We're going to find out. We jumped into the film. We're going to talk about the reasons why and where we would take him. Coming up next.
Time is our most precious commodity. So don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free. That's right, 40 FREE free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and the history of the Constitution, introduction to free market economics. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures that they have. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu to register. Guys, you don't really want to miss out on this opportunity. It's free. Again, FREE free. Tap into it, hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch or an urge in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same exact page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, you'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, guys, that's FanDuel.com to join today. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Scouting Ohio State running back Quinshon Judkins, Keith, a guy that came in, I think he was my RB1 off of the summer. Being, at Ole Miss, he was getting the bulk of the carries for the last 2 years. I think he came in as a freshman, took the job from Zach Evans as a true freshman. He's been on the radar for quite some time. And so far on this season, he transferred over to Ohio State. He's got 106 carries, 647 yards rushing, and 7 total touchdowns on the season. And this season has not gone, it has not played up to par for Quinshon Judkins, right? And you look at, he's averaging over 6 yards per carry, but then you look at his game log and you only see 2 100-yard rushing games on the season. He only has 2 games. Oh, he has 4 games where he's carried the ball over 13 or more times, right? So the volume isn't there. So when you turn on the tape, Keith, and you watched this Ohio State offense, you watch Quinshon Judkins, what is going on, in your opinion, just from watching the tape, and why he has not been as productive as we've seen in the past?
Yeah, I think you said 100 carries, right? I mean, we're almost
106.
Yeah, we have 3 weeks left of college football season, and you're sitting at 106 carries. And just to put in perspective, some running backs get 30 carries in a game. So, like it's
Ashton,
Yeah.
Ashton Genty.
Omari and Hampton, right? Like you got to touch the rock. Like we've seen it with Ollie Gordon, right? Like he touched the rock, production goes up a little bit more. He doesn't touch the rock, then kind of stays where it's at. Then you always talk about having a routine, right? I mean, what a rhythm. I'm sorry, as a running back, and he's not even able to find that through the game. And I still think that he's the same prospect, right? You have to look at this situation and say, hey, this is affecting your draft stock. So I look at Quinshon and I have to say your move from Ole Miss to Ohio State had to be championship or bust at the end of the day, right? Because you're not benefiting from the other side, because I still think Quinshon is the same talent, right? Like like watching the film, how I felt about him week 1 of the college football season is how I feel about him now. You just know that he's not getting the football at the end of the day, and that's going to affect how people feel towards him, because obviously the big time plays and things like that. And I think that he's another prospect. And like I said, we talked about it with Ali too, that if the production is not there, people are going to grade their floor. You see what I'm saying? Like, and I think with both of those guys heading into this season, people were grading their ceiling. Like, it's like, oh, a lot of production, this, we see a lot of reps, XYZ. Now with the lack of production, people are going to grade their floor, which I think is not necessarily fair, especially for Quinshon.
No, 100%, right? You know, and it's just a litany of things, you know, watching tape, Keith. The offensive line has not been this is not a physical offensive line up front. Like, they're not moving bodies in the run game a whole lot, like just creating running lanes for him. He's got to work through traffic a lot, like in a lot of trash, a lot of like bodies close together, because guys aren't generating a vertical push consistently in the run game. When Josh Simmons went down, that was literally a first round caliber offensive lineman, offensive tackle. You lose him for the year, and things like it really like it's put a spotlight on how flawed Ohio State's offensive line really is. And because of the fact, then you like you said, you factor in 106 carries going into week 12 is insane to me to think about. Don't get me wrong, you got another really talented running back, right? But you knew that's what you were getting, not just so much for Quinshon, but like you got to think the offensive coordinator is Chip Kelly. Like, you know what I mean? I remember Chip Kelly, like at UCLA, ran the ball heavy. Like, you saw a lot of, like, what was it, Zach Charbonnet? I forget the other running back that was there with them. Like, yeah, they ran the ball at a high clip. They were physical. They were punching you in the mouth. And we were like, I remember at one point I was like, that's a Chip Kelly offense? Like, well, I'm so used to the Oregon Chip Kelly offense. You know what I mean?
No, 100%. And you know what the problem is, DP, is that they've also, I'm going to look up Travion Henderson touches, right? But the problem is that they're truly splitting these guys' reps, right? Yeah. So it's like, no, in a sense, the only people that are winning in the maybe they're winning on the back end, right? Because then they can sit there and say we don't have as much tread on the tires. Like Travion Henderson has 78 carries for 588 yards, right? So he's not touching the rock. Like they're kind of split. They've split it down the middle so much that I think it's just difficult.
Will Howard has 62 carries. The quarterback.
He's the guy that's winning, right? Right. At the end of the day, right? Like he's the one toting the rock. So I think that's a big part of it. And I think that once we get into like, hey, what is the top, what are your top 50 prospects and things like that? Don't be surprised if Quinshon Judkins is still in there for me, because grading the skill set, I still think he's that type of bet.
And kid, I gotta ask you, I mean, when you look at they have 3 games left. They go on the road. I believe this weekend they go to Northwestern. Then next week, on the 23rd, they host Indiana, top 5. Indiana is top 5 in the country. That is crazy to think, man. This is not basketball, by the way. This is football we're talking about. Indiana is top 5 right now. Then you close up with your arch nemesis, Michigan. You're going to get back on the horse. Ryan Day's going to get his first dub against Michigan because Michigan can't score points consistently, right? But so you look at this.
Well, he better hope so, DP.
If you lose to this Michigan team, you're probably fired after that game. They're going to just roll. Right. He's going to be the interim head coach going into the college football playoffs, because we're not about to do this, right? And then, of course, you got the Big Ten matchup again, more than likely against Oregon, that rematch. For me with Quinshon, to silence a lot of the detractors and doubters, he just needs a strong finish to the season. These next 3 weeks, now that goes on back onto the coaching staff. Get him the ball. Get him going. He's still your leading rusher. You know what I mean? He's still your leading rusher. He's tied for first in rushing touchdowns with Will Howard, who's their red zone. Like, again, like he probably could have more touchdowns if it was like a Kyle McCord. But Will Howard is a running threat. In the red zone, low red, you run QB keeper, QB zone read and power, and you got a 6'5", 240-pound quarterback. You know what I mean? They're going to get the ball over the goal line. So I just hope that they can give him the touches, because once you get into, and this is part of the worry I have for them, you get into the playoffs and it's one and done, right? It's not like, oh, we got another game next week. No, it's one and done. You get into the playoffs, you're going to you want to make sure from a game planning standpoint and play calling standpoint, hey, we want to make Will Howard comfortable. How do you do that? I think the run game is a big part of that. Get the run game going. If you know that you can't get vertical push between the tackles with the interior offensive lineman, let's get some zone. Let's get some toss sweeps. Let's get him on the perimeter. Figure a way to get this young man going so that then you got a play action game and all the other stuff that you do with Will Howard. Now it's a lot easier anyway, because the defense is trying to key on stopping the run game. Quinshon and Travion, for him, I don't think he needs to go to the Senior Bowl or anything like that. I'm not going to say that. But if he declares, that combine is going to be big. That combine is going to be huge.
And he honestly, DP, I didn't think about that, but he may want to go, right? Like
he might.
Like be independent of this. And we talk about that, right? Like those showcases allow you, outside of wearing your team's helmet, right, to be independent of the team, right, and be able to showcase yourself. And when we scout, we don't, like, when we go to the Senior Bowl, DP, we don't scout them and say Quinshon with Ohio State, right? Like, we scout them as individual prospects, and I feel like that's what he needs, right? Like, to be away from that situation, people to think about Quinshon again and get excited about what he can do as a running back. So I didn't think about that, but that probably would be a good opportunity for him, even if he just go out there for 2 days, right? Tote the rock a little bit, just remind people like
them one-on-ones, he's probably gonna feast on those pass catching one-on-ones against linebackers and everything. Yeah, like he'll probably have a field day.
Yeah, and just get people to start talking about you again, like, oh yeah, I remember Quinshon was really good, right? Like that's what you want people to be sitting there and saying. But DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing, man, and we're gonna wrap this thing up with prospect spotlight. We're gonna take a prospect, put a spotlight on them, have a conversation. We'll talk about that coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Prospect Spotlight, Keith. I am going to the ACC. We got Clemson on the road against Pittsburgh, and I got to look at linebacker, my guy, Barrett Carter, a guy who came back to school. The whole plan was to improve on the season and improve on in some areas that he struggled with last year, right? And I think when you look at what he's going to be facing with Pittsburgh's offense, Eli Holstein, the quarterback, is good, but they have a running back who does a little bit of everything. Desmond Reed, 5'8", 175, low center of gravity guy. He's their leading rusher with 670 yards rushing, but he's their second leading receiver in receptions and receiving yards, 33 receptions, 428 yards on the ground. And I think with Barrett Carter, this is a game where his presence is going to be needed to be felt, Keith. Like, he's going to have to make his presence known. 6'1", 230. He looked like he added some weight and got stronger and added some more power to his frame this year. But on the season, he's got, I think, 43 total tackles, 3 sacks. He's looked solid in pass protection, 4 PBUs, no interceptions. Is again in a game where the running back is so pivotal for your opposing offense in multiple ways. A guy like Barrett Carter, you're going to need to be able to stop him in the run game, but also when he leaks out into the pass sets and get out to his routes, you need to be in the close proximity. And I think this could be a game where they do Texas routes to get some quick hitters to Desmond Reed, and even try to get him down the field like wheel routes and stuff. With a guy with that athletic profile that is Barrett Carter, I think you need to be able to be a factor in the passing game and showcase, hey, I can take away running backs at going into the next level, because that's another thing. You watch Bijan Robinson, we watch Saquon Barkley, we watch Christian. Like the San Francisco 49ers offense looks different when Christian McCaffrey's there. It's hard to play man coverage when you got a running back who can run routes like a receiver out the backfield. With so much of that in the NFL now, you need linebackers who can cover, and Barrett Carter can do that. He can blitz, he can defend the run, he can cover. Again, the linebacker class, for whatever reason, I mean, I get it. It's the running backs of the defense. They're not talked about a lot. Barrett Carter needs a game to really put that spotlight on himself and say, listen, guys, I'm a day 2 prospect.
Yeah, DP, I think it's funny that you went with a linebacker, because my first thought was to go with a linebacker and talk about Alabama linebacker Deontay Lawson. So I think that's funny that we both was initially going to pick a linebacker. But to talk about Barrett Carter, I'm excited to hear those things, DP, about Barrett Carter, because we know that the talent that he was heading into last year, right? And like everybody's like, okay, cool, this could be a first-round guy. Obviously, last year didn't play out how he wanted to, XYZ. He came back, and it looks like that he's, I don't want to say righting wrongs, right? But he's playing better. And I think that even with guys like Nakobe Dean making plays for the Philadelphia Eagles, right, it's going to get people more excited about, hey, like, even if he's a little bit undersized, he's going to bring us value in other situations, right? So I like that Barrett Carter name pull. I was going to pick Deontay Lawson, DP. But I'm gonna go with Garrett Nussmeier just for like a prospect spotlight situation. Traveling to Florida, right? I would say this. I think the appropriate way to describe Garrett Nussmeier is like you're down, but you're not out, right?
Yeah.
Like if you could rebound, respond, go put up 4 or 5 touchdowns against Florida, be in a good situation at Florida. And the thing is that this Florida team is still fighting at the end of the day, right? Like they gave Georgia a problem, I think, until like the fourth quarter or something like that. They're still fighting, and they're still trying to win games. And you have to look at it as that this is a statement game for Florida, right? Like, hey, if we upset LSU and we knock them off too, you can be in a good situation, because those two teams are walking into that game with different mindsets, right? LSU is walking in disappointed, like, man, we might have just lost opportunity to be in the playoffs. Florida's like, hey, we out the playoffs. We just trying to beat everybody up now, right? We never had that. Like, since week 1, we've been out the playoffs, right? So that's how they're looking at it. So I'm looking at Garrett Nussmeier, DP, as a prospect spotlight, because I do want to see him respond, because when we talk about this quarterback class and like what can happen, he's, like I said, he's down, but he's not out.
No, and that's like I said, that's the key with this quarterback class. There's the top 2 guys, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. Everything else is up for grabs, right? And at some point, someone has to step up to the plate, take the bull by the horns, and say, I'm your QB3. And I consistently say this. If Garrett Nussmeier or Jalen Milroe can close the season out strong, protect the football, don't turn it over, make the right reads, the right plays, different things like that, you can then, because what's the old adage, Keith? It's not how you start, it's how you finish. Yep. Like, you know what I mean? Nobody remembers a hot start if you finish poorly. You know what I mean? You can start out 8-0 and then lose the rest of your games and miss the playoffs. Nobody cares how you started. It's all about how you finish. So if either one of those quarterbacks, if you finish strong, the middle of the season lull that you had, turning the ball over, things like that, people forget about it. Like, you know what I mean? I remember Trevor Lawrence's last year at Clemson. He was turning the ball over like crazy to start that season. Yep. I think that the first 4 or 5 games, multiple interceptions, he was putting the ball in harm's way. I was like, what is going on with T-Law? Like, and then he righted the ship. Like, he settled down and he was fine. Nobody remembered those interception games. You know what I mean? Once we got to the end of the season and got to the playoffs, nobody cared. So it's like, for those guys, Garrett Nussmeier, just keep swinging, big dog. Just keep swinging, keep throwing, and just finish the season strong. Because while some people feel like you need to go back to school, if you finish strong, the NFL Draft Advisory Board looks at your tape, whatever. They say, you know what? You could be a high second-round pick. And for a quarterback, that typically means you first round.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you have to look at it. We just talked about all the teams with the beginning, right? Like when we talked about the best landing spots for Cam Ward, I mean, still a lot of spots, right? And then even you think about the Dolphins, and maybe not the first round, but what if the top end of the second round, the Dolphins say, hey, okay, cool, let's go get Cam Ward, let's go get Jalen Moore, let's go get Quinn Ewers, right? Like you still want to put yourself in position to go to, and sometimes the second round quarterbacks, they end up going to the better situation at the end of the day, and that's what it's all about. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. Like we like to say, man, y'all gonna talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everydays. And guys, on tomorrow's show, we get into the full Week 12 preview. Who needs to make a statement? Second-tier prospects and those sleepers with the alarm clock going off. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.